migrants being active as an employee or even as an entrepreneur could add and maybe should add value to the European society and especially the host country that they're in. However, migrants often have problems in terms of not being familiar with the business environment, the business culture, the regulatory framework, and other issues such as the administrative procedures, etc.
Training, advising, networking and mentoring services, as well as, of course, facilitated access to funding and facilities. A comprehensive provision of support is best suited to help migrant entrepreneurs to thrive in their receiving countries.
In this study, basically, we try to cover a wide range of activities and services like the institutional informative one-stop shop or the provision of legal advice or advice to migrants.
The three objectives of the study are effectively to collect data, information, evidence on practices and especially good practices to support the migrants. The second objective is of course to look at those cases and see what lessons can be learned from them. And the final objective is to provide help and guidance to the practitioners.
We basically built a database of measures and practices.
The geographical scope is in principle EU 28, where we've identified the best practices or good practices, but we also looked within Europe, outside the EU 28, and Canada and Australia.
Subsequently then we selected these 22 case studies, exceptional practices that perform particularly well in their area.
The study points to the fact that successful measures are the measures that create a nice blending between individualized support and group training. Of course, targeted migrant entrepreneurship support initiatives need to be tailored to migrants as a group, but also tailored to the individuals. One tool for this individualized support is, of course, needless to say, mentorship.
Mentoring is basically the relationship between a professional relationship with a mentor that is a person that is highly experienced in business and a migrant that wants to become or that is newly become an entrepreneur.
The quality of the mentor, but also more in general, the quality of the staff involved in this project is extremely important. There's a balance to strike between volunteering and goodwill in supporting and professional support.
And then we have business training, which is related to the possibility of receiving training on how to set a business. Not in abstract sense, but in the context of the business environment of the hosting country.
At the same time, they should try not to cluster the migrant in migrant-only measures. And so networking is a key element of a comprehensive support scheme for migrant entrepreneurship.
Networking is very important for a migrant entrepreneur in order to get to consumers, local markets, suppliers, associations of industries.
There are nice examples of initiatives in France or in the United Kingdom where the extensive network of the service providers serve very well the objective of facilitating the transition of migrant entrepreneurs into a mainstream community of entrepreneurship.
The third dimension that we analyze is legal and regulatory advice, which is quite important because setting a business really brings about a lot of red tape and administrative burden in relation to obtaining a license, obtaining permission to set the business, but also about migration law, the residence permits, so far and so forth. It's very difficult for migrants to access to finance because of lack of credit record or because of residence permit problem, and that somehow make credit institutions reluctant to lend them money.
NGOs can support and facilitate access to funding for migrant entrepreneurs. One way, of course, is providing guidance and supervision in the elaboration of the business plan in a way that this business plan is bankable, as we would say. Prepare migrant entrepreneurs to sit interviews with bank institutions, how they would behave, And very interesting, there's an initiative in the guidebook that points to this, is also raising awareness on the other side. So among creating institutions, what are the specific issues that migrant entrepreneurs face?
Similarly to access to finance, facility provisions is also relevant. The possibility for migrants to have support to find a shop where to set a business or a co-working space is still very important. Language sensitivity is a cross-sectional dimension that has to do with how the measures and the intervention in the scheme that we have analyzed consider the needs of people that come from a different background and speak different languages.
Cultural sensitivity is also understanding that migrants may use different media than the mainstream population, so perhaps campaigning through ethnic media or through grassroots initiatives in the community.
The impact are related basically to the results of the achievement of the measure, but also to the extent to which, and we analyzed how they set a monitoring system to, for instance, analyze how many businesses they have created, how sustainable they are.
There is an issue with sustainability over time, which is heavily interlinked with project funding. Most of these measures are based on project-specific funding, which ends at the end of the measure itself, and it might be quite tight. So, of course, pooling resources, sharing, for instance, trainers or advisors may be a way of creating economies of scale and so improving the cost effectiveness. Do not just provide support for the sake of it, but follow up, monitor what is the outcome of this support to ensure that the next phase of the initiative or the next group of migrants who are served by the initiatives gets improved support, and to ensure that funding for these initiatives is well spent.
The guidebook is very useful for policymakers to improve what they are doing, to design future action. For a practitioner, the benchmarking tool is absolutely useful in a way that can assess their own performance. Very easily then there will be a graph, a visual representation of the strength or the weaknesses, and in which dimension they can improve, assuming some tips and some very operational suggestion of how to improve some of the dimension of some of the activities of some of the services they provide.